Hello, everybody. Hope it's working. How's it going? Happy Taurus season. It is Taurus season. Oh, I have so much to say about Taurus season. I have a lot to say about a lot of things today. Why not? And of course, I always come to you during the new moon and the full moon. And so this video is just before the new moon in Taurus, which is tomorrow at 9:25 p.m., I do believe. And, the reason I love astrology so much is it gives a language to the world that you could sort of view everything through and explain everything with, so symbolism is so important, especially during these times, at least to me, and if you're watching, hopefully to you too. And it can help validate and explain a lot of the current affairs in your own life collectively. And, right now it's not exactly super clear what's going on. Things are veiled. It's hard to figure out, What's easy is that there is a virus that is making everyone sick. That's easy to point at. That's terrible. And there are people who are ill, and there are people who are losing their lives to this. And so that's, the one thing everyone can kind of look around and say, that's happening. I realize that there are some people who are denying that completely, but that is not who I am. I very much believe that there is a dangerous virus that is easily contracted and will ravage a person if they catch it. Some people won't, though. How weird is that we're dealing with a pandemic that doesn't even affect everyone the same. There are people who don't show any symptoms. There are people who do. And here we are in the middle of all of it, trying to keep everyone from getting it, trying to keep everyone healthy. And it's just an extremely confusing time. Our government says one thing and does another. They promise money to small businesses, but the corporate people are being bailed out that have tons of money, Our borders have just closed. I believe I saw that. World leaders are, coming under scrutiny for sure. I think scrutiny is a good word for right now. And I think scrutiny is something that we all need to be, scrutinizing is something that we all need to be doing. So, that's just general, like, whoa, okay, things are real weird, right? And now it's like, open back up. We're opening back up. I didn't realize we closed the country down. I don't think we did. I think we all paused. Someone called this the Great Pause, and that is, it's so wonderful to think of it like that. And that really is the nature of what I think this new moon is about. So let me just start by giving a few keywords for Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Every sign has a planet that is associated with it in astrology. So for instance, we're coming out of Aries season. Aries is ruled by Mars. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus is such a wonderful, bright light in our sky, and it's beautiful. And you could think of ancient times and what you might have thought when you looked up in the sky and that was the bright, you might have even thought it was a god, right? Or a goddess. And in fact, Venus is a goddess in mythology. So then you have to ask, what does Venus represent? Because that's exactly what Taurus keywords will be associated with it. So love, beauty. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So what you can count on, where you find the most comfort. It also rules finances and the economy. Taurus would be the principle of creative beauty. So when you speak of creativity, Taurus is like, the beautiful painting that you see, or the beautiful music that you hear. That is a Taurus concept. It really is about comfort, though, in Taurus. Taurus really likes to be comfortable. And so, that's the principle of, what do you enjoy doing when you get off work? Like that's what the Taurus principle is. Um, values is another way to talk about Venus and Taurus. So yeah, it could be monetary values. It could also be, maybe there's some people who don't value money and they value, chocolate. I think I saw Stacey Walters. She said she's going to eat some chocolate. It is. Taurus is a wonderful season that usually is heralds the beginning of summer. You're coming into the warm season. The days are longer. And so it is all that feels good. So when they say Taurus season, that's when the sun is moving through the sign of Taurus. That means time and space, by the way, okay? So when we look at the astrology chart, we're not just talking about actual space, we're also talking about time. And this is the Taurus time. So what is a new moon in Taurus? Well, if the sun is the life force, and that's really what governs us, right? The moon is our emotions and our inner world and the soul. And so when you have the sun and the moon coming together, it really is a syncing up of these two things. And in Taurus, we're setting new intentions. We're planting seeds. Farmers plant seeds according to the new moon. I mean, it's a timing mechanism. So at the new moon in Taurus, we are going to plant seeds on what we value the most. What brings us comfort? What brings us good feelings? I mean, the moon in Taurus wants to feel good, okay? That's the simplest way to describe a new moon in Taurus. Many, many keywords you could use, but that's what I'm saying. So then we say that's what we're going to do tomorrow, is we're going to go inward and we're going to think about the things we value. During this time, unprecedented time, this question becomes bigger. What do we value? This is the biggest question of all. And how funny all this is timed for the new moon in Taurus, okay? What do we find? Where do we find beauty in our lives? Where do we find comfort in our lives? What is it that brings us feelings of peace and fixed earth? What can we count on, right? Well, these things are so up in the air right now. A lot of people have valued going to work every day, and all of a sudden they can't, and they valued that job because of what? The money it brings, or because of the fulfillment it brings. You'll find that a lot of people who are the essential people right now are essential because it's a need we all have, right? And I find that even is a question. What is essential? What makes a person an essential worker over someone else? What makes a job essential? What makes, what do we need as people? What is essential to us? Money? Okay, well, some people who aren't deemed essential can't work right now, are barred from working. And so they find that they have no money coming in. Maybe people have money coming in, but they're working from home at this point. And so our values are really on the table. What do we value? Do we value that money we were getting from that shitty job? Are we enjoying our lives more even though money's not coming in? I can see a lot of people just like, you see these memes about people throwing papers up and just being like, I don't care anymore. I think that is the nature of what's going on right now. So let me go ahead and show you the chart and tell you why this new moon in Taurus is different than other new moons in Taurus. Because it is. I can't answer the phone right now, Dad. I'm doing a session. My dad's going in to have surgery on his Achilles tendon tomorrow on the new moon, and I thought how apropos. Remind me later. I'll update it later. This is the astrology chart, and I always have it at 0 degrees Aries because this right here, let me go ahead and point, do my little teaching session. I need my spotlight. There it is. This is the horizon. This is the what's rising over the horizon whenever you do a chart. For instance, when I was born, Cancer was rising. Okay, so this changes quite often. But when I'm doing a chart for the time, we just set it to 0 Aries. That way it doesn't get confusing, okay? So these are the signs around here. All these little things are the planets or also luminaries or also points in space. Like this is an asteroid, this is a planet, this is where eclipses happen. So as you can see, it's not all just planets. So the build up here is we got a lot of Aries, right? That's Aries. This is Taurus. This is the sun, this is the moon. This is 9:25 p.m. tomorrow when the new moon will be exact at 3 degrees, 24 minutes of Taurus. So there's this other little thing here. Little, maybe not so little. This planet here, accompanying the new moon, is Uranus. All right. This is the thing that's going to rock the new moon in Taurus boat, because Uranus is not steady energy. Uranus and Taurus is steady. Taurus is fixed earth. Taurus knows what comfort is. Taurus knows what it values. And, you know, that's the nature of Taurus. Taurus is steady and slow going in this steady manner. And, you know, the ground you walk on. Uranus as a planet is a function. What function does Uranus play? Upheaval, revolution, lightning. I think upheaval and revolution are my two favorite Uranus keywords. So this new moon is seeded with this idea of revolution, of upheaval. Change is the biggest word here. I'm saying a lot. It's because Uranus is unpredictable. That's the nature of Uranus. So anytime there are people who, and Rick Levine says this, Rick Levine's one of my teachers, and I love this because my favorite thing about Uranus is that it is unpredictable. So when people go in to predict things with astrology, it's like, how can you do that and be right on the money when the nature of one of the planets, the function of one of the planets is to be unpredictable, right? So it's hard to get a specific prediction, you know, but there are people who hone in on this stuff, but I think that's more related to intuition. When you read the planets and you read the symbolism, you could say, here's a theme. You can predict themes all day long. Can you predict what's going to happen? It's rare. Otherwise, astrologers would be playing, you know, the stock market and gambling and knowing what's going on. It's not the case. So this is why I love Uranus as a principle. It is unpredictability. It is out of the blue. It is upheaval, change, revolution. Okay, so another reason I love Uranus is because it's really linked the orbit of it to a human life cycle. It's a 84-year orbit. Now I realize people live more than 84 years and people live less than 84 years. But when you look at it and you say, okay, what is a human lifespan? I think 84 years is a good number. I mean, that's kind of like, okay, most people at least try to get to 84 years. So you can follow Uranus around your chart and see the shifts. It goes through a sign. It's like 7 years, I think it takes to be in a sign. So it just moved into Taurus this past year. Actually, it dipped in and then it retrograded, but now it's in Taurus for good. So Uranus is bringing change, upheaval, and unpredictability to this area of Taurus, which is our value systems, the economy. The last time Uranus was in Taurus was the Great Depression. Okay? All right. So now you're starting to follow me, hopefully. We are going through massive changes in our value system, massive changes in what we think we find comfortable. And so the way that Uranus does this is to kind of pull the rug out from under you and be like, okay, so what I do like is to try to get on top of this energy. And I say with Uranus, instead of planting your feet in the sand, imagine being on the beach, okay? And you might have to imagine it because we may not be able to be on a beach anytime soon. But planting your feet in the sand and waves are crashing and they're crashing into you. You're going to get knocked down. and you're going to face plant in that sand, and the waves are going to roll you over. Now, instead of planting your feet in the sand when you see that there's lots of waves coming at you, the better thing to do is maybe grab a float or a surfboard and try to ride it. And that is how you can get on top of Uranian energy, is to be okay with change. Now, that's a good thing to do anyway. I mean, expecting change, expecting chaos, because that's what this life is the better way to be. We have had a long history in this country over the last 100 years of comfort. You could say that there have been upheavals and change, and there have been. There have been, moments where it seemed as if things might come crashing down on us. But overall, Americans are the top 1% of this world. We have, even the people in poverty in this country are living better than a majority of the entire earth, right? And I speak to Americans specifically because that's where I live. So I don't know that anyone in Russia is watching me. Probably not. So I'm just going to speak to that. But yeah, comfort is something that is ingrained in our DNA. We like our comfort in this country. We like our food to be available. We like to be able to go out to the store and get something in the blink of an eye. We like to be able to order our stuff. We like to have our beer when we want it. And we like to have the American dream. Okay, we like to have a roof over our heads. Comfort is something that we are all so used to. Even if you've been uncomfortable in this life, you have to look at how uncomfortable things could get, right? And as Americans, we've just had it real easy. And so it's so funny how this new moon's coming, conjunct Uranus, and we have people protesting because they can't go bowling. This way of life is over. I'm just going to say that. The way we've been doing it is completely over. So now, what we're charged with tomorrow during this new moon, if you really want to do some planetary magic, or whatever you want to call it, set some intentions, do your praying, whatever it is how we go forward with this change, because we are in the midst of upheaval. Fixed Earth, Taurus, Uranus in Taurus is earthquakes. That is the only way you can look at it. I mean, upheaval. So, in times where you have people going, open it back up for the economy. Absolutely. People cannot survive in this country the way it is with the way we're doing things right now. So let's think bigger. People, open the economy back up. Let me work. Okay, maybe the economy needs to change. Something is being seeded here when it comes to changing what we value. Now, the thing that we do in America is we get up and we go to work 9 to 5. Maybe people do work for different things like the gig economy. Maybe you're able to make your own hours, but it's a constant hustle. It's a constant climb to the top. You need to make the money. You need to make the money to pay the rent. And the rent keeps going up. And you need to pay the rent to have a roof over your head. And you need to live in a good place so that your kids can get a good education. And all of it is bull crap right now. Schools are not typical right now. I'm teaching my kid. She's getting taught online by her teachers, but I also have to be there to facilitate that. So, it's like living in an area with a good school is, okay, I've paid all my taxes and now I don't even get for the good school system. And now I can't even have my kids in the good school system because of the virus. Okay. Or I worked so hard to get this job and now I don't have a job anymore. Or I worked so hard to get into this relationship and now it's and I fought so hard for it and I hustled so hard for this relationship and now it's all, blowing up in my face because we're staying home every day and fighting, right? Or I worked so hard for this friend group and I can't even hang out with them. I worked so hard for this savings account and all these savings, and my 401k's tanked. All of these things are everyone's dealing with them in their own way. hmm So, how do you go forward? Well, you have to think of what you value the most. You lose your job because of this pandemic. Do you want to go back to the same job when it's all over? Maybe you're forced to move in with family. Have you treated them right? Maybe you're forced to look at relationships in your life and go, is this really serving me? Now that we're spending all this time together, what is this about? All of these questions are going to come up. And so this new moon is an opportunity to really, really think about it. Now, why do I say think? This is going to talk about, other planets. We got other things in play here. It's like, you're looking at, I'm trying to erase this. It's like you're looking at a game board, okay? And this is in play, but what else is in play? So I told you Taurus is ruled by Venus. So then you would look, where is Venus right now, to get a little more information. And information is actually the best keyword here. Venus is in Gemini. So we're really having to actually intellectually consider a lot of this. Gemini is the sign that rules communication. It's an air sign. It rules information, information exchange. It rules the internet. And so we are really being called to actually intellectually think about what we value. Most of the time when you think of your value system, that is something that's innate in you. Like, you don't go around thinking, do I value the color red over the color blue? Whatever. It's just a thing you feel, okay? But with Venus and Gemini, we're being forced to think about it. Gemini is also the trickster, okay? So all of these things changing all around us, it's like, oh gosh, I have to actually think on my feet about what I value. What is the next move? So this is a time to gather information, make lists, make pros and cons lists. And it's also a time to think outside of the box. We can't be bogged down, not with Uranus and Taurus. You can't plant your feet right now. You have to be able to pivot. This might mean new ways of thinking of what you do, new ways of thinking how you save your money, new ways of thinking about all different things. We are forced to actually shift. Shift is the biggest word right now. The other interesting thing is, very shortly, in fact, on the full moon, which is coming up May 6th or 7th, I can't remember, I'll look in a minute. But by then we have the North Node moving into Gemini. So what does that mean? Let me clear this out. Where's my eraser? Here we go. Okay. The nodes are where eclipses happen. So you can call it the eclipse cycle, eclipse season, and where we've had the eclipses have been Cancer, Capricorn. We've also had a lot of other crap in Capricorn, right? Capricorn is structure, boundaries, foundations, career, the government. It would be the way the government deals with money. That's where the South Node has been. So that's where eclipses have happened. And then also the North Node in Cancer, that is nurturing. It's the opposite of Capricorn. It's nurturing, it's the emotions, it's the feminine principle, it's the mother. That's Cancer. So the North Node is sort of what you're supposed to be heading towards, and the South Node is what you're clearing out. They call it, the South Node is the tail of the dragon, the North Node is the head of the dragon, okay? So what we've been doing is learning to nurture ourselves, and that we've been called to do that. And how? By restructuring our boundaries, foundations, rules for ourselves, the government restructuring, all of this crazy stuff over here has also called us to also be with our families. That's a Cancerian thing. So that's where the eclipses have been happening for the last 18 months, I believe. What's happening now is right on the full moon in Scorpio, the nodes are going to switch to different signs. They're going to switch to Gemini and Sagittarius. So whereas we've been called to really feel and really get in touch with our inner world, to really consider how we nurture ourselves, to consider how we nurture others, that's what we've been called to do. We're about to shift, and we're going to be called to think. We've been feeling, we've been restructuring. Now it's time to think. That's Gemini. And then the South Node being in Sagittarius is a restructuring of what personal truth is, a restructuring of, or a clearing out of old karma, if you will, of our belief systems. So the beliefs we've had about the world at large, about, you could say spiritual beliefs, you could say just beliefs about reality in general, beliefs about where we were headed in our life path, all of those things are about to shift. And we're going to be forced to take in more information and really think. So it's not just Venus in Gemini. Now we've got the eclipses switching to Gemini. So you can see how information is becoming a big deal right now. Shifting, the trickster, playing with reality. Why do I say that? Because if you really get into this and you start to bog down in just information, then it becomes kind of black and white. That's not the case here. Gemini likes to play with reality. And I think that's very important, is playing with ideas right now. That could mean playing with the idea of let's just stick with this theme of work and jobs, of doing something completely different. This is a time where the world around us is so chaotic and so unsure. It's an opportunity to do something completely different in our own personal lives. And this new moon tomorrow is a perfect opportunity to think about it, play with it. Set your intentions for the future, okay, set several. Why not? There's several different possibilities out there right now. And then the other thing happening in Gemini, that's May 12th or 13th, I really need to get my dates exact, is Venus goes retrograde. And I've talked about this for a few other videos because it's so important. Venus retrogrades the symbolism is beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Because it's related to the story of Jesus in the desert, which is 40 days. Venus retrogrades typically 40 days exactly. So what happens is this bright morning star, or I'm sorry, actually she's an evening star right now, begins to get closer to the sun when she goes retrograde. She appears to go backwards in the sky. Not actually, it's just the way the orbits work, okay? She just looks like she's going backwards in the sky. But really what's happening is the way the orbits work is the sun and Venus are getting closer. And so you begin to not be able to see Venus, because just like with the moon, you can't see the moon when the moon is by the sun during the day because the sun's so bright. So eventually Venus will meet the sun and become a morning star. And so what happens is every morning before the sun comes up, she's going to rise. So it takes about 40 days for all that to happen. And when Venus goes direct, actually probably a little bit longer before she actually appears brightly in the sky in the morning, because it takes a little bit after she does that to separate from the sun so that you can see her. So during the Venus retrograde, the symbolism of that is being deprived or a lack. For instance, in the story of Jesus in the desert, Jesus fasted. He didn't have food or water, I think. Oh, I need to read that. In fact, that would be a good story to read. I don't care what you believe. These stories are important. These stories inform you. The stories of Buddha inform you. The stories of Jesus inform you. The stories of the Greek mythologies inform you to this reality. They're all a part of our consciousness, okay? That's why they're mythology. If you haven't read any Joseph Campbell, read some Joseph Campbell. It's amazing that we have all of this inside our psyche. So Jesus was deprived and tempted during this time. He wanted to get closer to God, and Satan was like, you know what, I'll give you some bread. And Jesus said, man cannot live on bread alone. And then Satan said, how about ruling the world. I'll give you all the power. And Jesus denied it because Jesus knew what he was after was a closer walk with his Father, with God. Okay? And so during this Venus retrograde, there will be a lack of something, a lack of love, a lack of peace, a lack of beauty. I just feel like the symbolism of that is that you experience a lack here. And the point is to not pick the low-hanging fruit, to not give in to temptation, to do the easy thing. And so what we may experience with Venus retrograde is a lack of information. Go figure. I mean, or a lack of being able to make a decision, a lack of routine even with Gemini. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. And honestly, and that's on the collective world stage, but Venus is finances as well. Like we may be experiencing a lack of that. I mean, that's absolutely true, even right now. So during that time, just know that it doesn't last, and know that what you're supposed to be doing is figuring it out mentally, honing in on something with information, maybe reading, maybe learning. These are all really brilliant things to do during the Venus retrograde, and also creating. We are creative beings. That is the nature of humanity. That's what makes us human, is that we are creative. We can create. Look at what we've created. Look at this world. Look at what I'm talking to you on. It's creative. So that is another principle of Venus retrograde in Gemini. Get creative. Express yourself. Gemini is expression, but don't express yourself in order to make others happy. This is self-expression for yourself. This is getting it out onto paper, onto, into the ether somewhere, in order to find your way. So the fact that all of these things are just boom, 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 it's like the universe is going, hello, I need you to start shifting your values. And we're going to do that by having a Venus retrograde in Gemini, so that you have to really mentally check in with these values, really think about them. And you may experience a lack during that time. That's May 13th through June 24th, I believe. So back to this new moon time. During this new moon, another thing's going on, and it's not exact. I don't think actually the Mars-Venus trine is exact at all because of the way the orbits are. I don't think it's Mars-Venus trine until September, but very close. Maybe not an exact trine, very close. What does that mean? Mars is in Aquarius. And it doesn't surprise me we're being called to open up things again, because Aquarius is freedom and Mars is how we take action. So Mars really wants freedom right now. And Venus is calling for that as well. Venus is like, gather more information. We need to figure this out. So Mars is like, let's open back up. I want to get going again. Hopefully Venus is supporting this thought process behind it, because we really do need to scrutinize what is going on. Mars in Aquarius is also tribe and group, and Saturn is in Aquarius right now as well. And Saturn's really going to restructure our tribes over the next 3 years, who we associate with, how we associate. I mean, you think of these new rules, handshakes, not going to be a thing anymore. No more hugging, no more any of that. And also Aquarius rules the future. So Mars and Saturn both are looking to the future. Mars really wants the future to be like, we're moving on it. Saturn's like, we may need to have a little limitation here, okay? And in fact, Saturn happens to be square to this new moon. So let me go ahead and draw that so that I can show you right there. Where's Saturn? Okay. So Saturn in Aquarius is like, we need to think about this going forward. The whole revolutionary principle of Uranus and Taurus is being kind of held back a little bit by Saturn in Aquarius, forcing us to really think about these things. Like Uranus and Taurus with the new moon is like, hey, we need money. We need to think about this. We have all this stuff going on, this upheaval, this revolution. Saturn in Aquarius is like, but there are limits. There is restriction. We need rules. So these things are fighting against each other. That's what a square is. You could also say creative tension. So where it's happening in your life is where you're going to experience the tension. For instance, Saturn in Aquarius for me is in my 8th house of my deepest desires, right? The way I really want life to go is the root chakra. And then the new moon in Taurus with Uranus is in my house of friendships. And those two things are in creative tension right now. I'm developing new values around my friendships. So you can actually look at your own chart and figure out where this creative tension is happening. So it wouldn't surprise me if you were having it happen in your 2nd house of finances, really wanting that to move forward, and you just couldn't right now. So that's just another interesting piece of this puzzle. And another interesting piece of this puzzle is that Saturn will retrograde back into Capricorn. What's interesting about that is Capricorn is where all of the pileup of planets was when this pandemic started. So that's something interesting to think about. Mercury is, and we need to talk about Mercury because Venus is in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in Aries right now. And that really does make you want to keep moving forward. Mercury in Aries is impatient, okay? Aries is go, get, let's do. By the time Mercury moves into Taurus, though, we may feel a little more reticent, a little more like, I need to think about this a little more. I need to be steady and slow and figure out what I can really count on in reality. When does Mercury move into Taurus? Well, that's something we need to look at. Let's see here. Let's get going by maybe week, because it might be a week or two. That's exactly. Okay. Wow. It actually is not very far away. Mercury moves into Taurus on April 27th. That's Monday. Once that happens, that means Mercury is also going to hit Uranus. So this is maybe some information out of the blue, and really a realization of the shift in values that we're being called to have. Okay, so Mercury in Aries right now is a little more fiery, a little more passionate. By the time Mercury moves into Taurus, you can expect things to go, whoa, I didn't think about this, I didn't realize this. So think about it now. Be considering, in fact, a good exercise, and I don't want to be like about everything, but a good exercise would be to consider worst case scenarios and how you move forward. What do you value in a worst case scenario? There's nothing wrong with that. That's preparation. So think about all of those things and what going forward, how you would conquer it, the resolve that you have. I think that's a good Taurus. It's a good Earth word, is the resolve you have. You know what I mean? So in a worst case scenario, what is your value system? In a best case scenario, what is your value system and why are they different? Why in this current society do you value going to work every day from 9 to 5, making money, paying the big corporate shills, and just being content with spending your entire life in a box? Why do you value that, and why do you want it to go back to that same way? In a worst case scenario, what is it that you value? Well, as long as my family's healthy and safe. So maybe that should be coming up to the top anyway. What you value in a worst case scenario, maybe that should be the thing. These are just little ideas I'm playing with. That's what Venus and Gemini wants. It wants you to play with reality and think about the different scenarios, the different ways of being. So yeah, it's important to note that when Mercury moves into Taurus, there will be a shift into, now we're going to think about our values. Right now, we're really thinking about what our ego wants right now. When Mercury moves into Taurus, it becomes more Venusian. It becomes really, the value shift becomes the biggest thing on our minds. Okay. And you could see with this new moon in Taurus, in fact, when does the sun cross over Uranus? Let me see that too. That's going to be an important day. Uh-huh. So this Saturday is when the sun hits Uranus, and it's not going to surprise me if there is some big uh, shocking event, and it may wait till Monday when Mercury moves into Taurus. I just want to drive home the fact that Uranus rules upheaval and unpredictability. And so, whereas things seem to be going well, maybe we're opening back up. I don't count. What is it? Don't count the eggs in your. There's a saying. Anyway, don't count on certain things that you are not completely sure will be there. Um, I think this is the best time to figure out who you are as a person, because I think the boat is going to keep rocking. That's my thing. Let's go forward in time very slowly, because the moon actually right now has just crossed, is with Mercury. So of course I'm being mercurial and talking about how we think and how we think we feel, because that's today. But by tomorrow at this time, the moon moves into Taurus, and then we start to get that feeling of a new cycle in this area. What do I find valuable in my life? How is that changing? How is that shifting? Um, that's also going to trine the south node and sextile the north node as well, and I didn't realize that, or at least note it whenever I was looking at it. Yeah, this is going to support our evolution. Let me just put it that way. And then let's see, Thursday, the moon's still in Taurus, so we're still dealing with that Taurus stuff. Um, Friday, moon's still in Taurus. It's quite a while, isn't it? Mars and Venus are still trine. That's the masculine and the feminine really supporting each other. Um, okay, so then by Saturday, that's when the moon moves into Gemini. And you could really, that's when I would expect to get some info, and maybe some feelings that there's something that we need to consider. And that's the same day the sun hits Uranus. So I would expect something to happen over the weekend that's going to really be maybe unpredictable, maybe just that it makes you shift the way you feel about life. Okay. Collectively, it could just be something crazy on the world stage. Who knows? Taurus does deal with financial systems. Okay. I think it's also crazy that we're dealing with this around the new moon, and the oil's gone to $0 a barrel. Yeah, expect some moves in that way. Sunday, pretty much the same. This weekend is going to be colored by Gemini a lot, because the moon's going to be in Gemini. So this is information, feeling out new information, thinking about things. It's going to be pretty intellectual, I would say. Then on Monday, the moon moves into Cancer. Mercury moves into Taurus. So that's going to feel like a pretty big shift. That it may have you in your feels a little bit, because the moon in Cancer already has people in their feels. Sextile to this Mercury in Taurus, it's like maybe the unsure feelings are getting to you emotionally. The unsure things that in reality are going to maybe affect you a little bit emotionally on Monday. So I would expect that to be a Monday and Tuesday to be maybe an emotional kind of day, and that's okay. It would be a good day to, maybe sit with your feelings and self-soothe. I mean, the North Node's still there in Cancer, so taking care of yourself. Also letting yourself feel just how much this upheaval is affecting you. Moving your emotions is very important. Let's see. Wednesday, the moon's still in Cancer. Um, mhm. Just following this around the chart. The moon goes into Leo on Thursday, which really calls you to get in touch with feelings of playfulness, in touch with your inner child. Um, it wants to feel good. That's going to be the first quarter square. So, I mean, that's kind of temper tantrum day because, you know, things are so unsure. You know, it's like when a kid, you know, it's like if you move, if you were forced to move as a child, what that did to you, I think that's going to be the feelings on Thursday and Friday. Like it's almost akin to, you know, this new world is kind of forcing your inner child into a completely new area, and that's uncomfortable. So, um, try to play on Thursday and Friday as much as you can. Try to be creative. Try to comfort yourself. I would think that's a good idea, especially since it's opposite Saturn and Aquarius. Yikes! And then it's going to oppose Mars. The moon opposite Mars is notable because it's Mars really is the principle of ego and maybe even anger, and then the moon is feelings. To have these opposite each other, it's like the need for freedom and for movement, for going forward, is not exactly making your inner child comfortable right now, right? um so then another thing that is notable as well coming up is that I would go ahead and say May 1st into May 2nd and 3rd, we've got Venus square Neptune. This is more confusion. In fact, I mean, you could even say the orb's pretty big right now. Venus moves to 20 degrees on Thursday. Yeah. So even into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it'll probably start this weekend. By Thursday the 30th, Venus squares Neptune. This is wanting the information, but something is trying to deliberately confuse it, okay? Venus in Gemini square Neptune in Pisces is illusion, fog, disillusionment, escapism, and that wouldn't surprise me either. Who doesn't want to get out of whatever the hell's going on right now? It feels pretty odd, okay? I don't expect Thursday and Friday to be easy. Let me put it that way. Not at all. Going into the weekend of Saturday, May 2nd, and I'm talking about, because now is April 21st. So what did I say about this weekend? Yeah, this weekend is going to feel like this immediate weekend is going to feel more about wanting to get information, wanting to think about things, wanting to consider what you value. It's a good weekend to be creative, but by next weekend is the one that's going to feel uncomfortable. So this is why I think, you know, don't get too comfortable. This weekend is like, okay, let's talk. Don't be going out and hanging out with friends this weekend just because you feel like you need the freedom. Don't move too fast on this freedom principle, because by next weekend you may be regretting it at that first quarter square. And then on let's see, going into next weekend, Saturday, May 2nd. Oh, that's when the moon trines all of this in Virgo. This is about perfecting. This is about figuring it out and really getting into your body. I would say next weekend is a good time to spend time with the earth. And that's another thing that can be looked at as upheaval right now. We're actually experiencing some revolution when it comes to the earth, you know, and do we want to move forward the way we've been doing it now that the air is clear and the bees are buzzing and everything? It's like the moon in Virgo coming up Saturday, May 2nd is going to call attention to health. It's going to call attention to the earth, and it's going to maybe, you know, Virgo can tend to feel guilty. That's why I'm saying don't do anything during this time leading up to it that's going to make you have a reason to feel guilty. You know what I mean? I would say stay the course. Stay the course of practicing social distancing, being very careful. I understand if you have to go back to work and open up your shop again. Do it the best way you can. Honor the reason this virus is a thing in this world. That's important. So then leading up to that, we got the moon in Virgo, which also incidentally squares that Venus in Gemini, which is another creative tension. Like, oh no, maybe I jumped the gun. It will also oppose Neptune. This is yeah, next weekend's going to be real weird. I don't know how else to describe it. This weekend, maybe enjoy it. Enjoy your, enjoy this weekend as much as you can, because next weekend seems to be tough. Getting into May 3rd, May 2nd, May 3rd. And then we're leading into it. Let's see, Monday is the moon in Libra. But then it's the full moon that I wanted to look at. And I normally wait to talk about the full moon, but I don't want to right now, because this full moon is the whole reason I'm cautioning about the way we do this particular moon cycle. The full moon in Scorpio rules loss. Scorpio rules the underbelly, secrets. It rules the life and death principle, okay? When you have a full moon, you have an illumination of this area. So that's the reason I specifically caution the way you go about this next 2 weeks. Utilize the Gemini, utilize the ability to communicate with friends online, utilize the time that you have to learn new things, really vet your information, gather information, and also be doing that thing where you're listing things out, you're writing down pros and cons, you're playing with reality, you're playing with new ideas. Because once the full moon in Scorpio comes around, that's illuminating the darker things in life, okay? It could be illuminating things that you don't want to look at. Now, what is the vessel to that? That is the 2 weeks building up to it. So mind your P's and Q's, because that full moon in Scorpio, I don't feel like is going to be very fun. That's just, I don't like to give like doomsday sort of sessions or ideas here, and I'm not. If you are doing your work and you're really thinking about what you love in life, then this illumination of the darker parts is not going to come as a surprise to you. Okay? But would not surprise me to have some secrets and it's also trine and sextile Neptune. Yeah, some disillusionment happening during this full moon in Scorpio. It does. It feels heavy. I don't know how else to describe it. Don't rush out. Don't start, living your life as if this hasn't been a thing, because the virus, all of that came about in order to have us redo everything. Okay. I do want to say something before I try to wrap it up. I read the Sabian symbol during this new moon for where Uranus is, and I thought it was incredible because let me see if I got it here. Share this. All right. So the Sabian symbols are word pictures for every degree of the zodiac, and they really help to illustrate what that particular section means, what idea it's trying to convey. I believe a psychic came up with these, and then Jane Rudyard, who I'm reading his version of the interpretation of it. And so I wanted to see during the new moon, the degree of Uranus is at 6 degrees. You always read for the next degree, you round up. And I loved the symbolism here. The woman of Samaria at the ancestral well. So this is the meeting of the traditional past and of the creative spirit pointing to the future. Let me see what I can pick and choose to see. Early in his ministry, Jesus meets a Samaritan woman at the ancestral well. This woman belongs to a tribe despised by the Jews. So the Samaritans were not liked by Jewish people during this time, and Jesus knew it, and the Samaritan woman knew it. So moreover, she's unmarried, which was also looked down on, and on the fringe of society. It's just that kind of woman that Jesus reveals that he was the Messiah to. I am he, a revelation that he apparently will not bestow even upon his disciples, at least not in words. What does this mean? Jesus as the avatar, which is just a representation, incorporating the Christ impulse, came to replace the old tribal order with a new order based on universal love. It's not to representatives of, or even to men still attached to the old order, that Jesus reveals his spiritual, evolutionary, and society transforming status. They had instead to reach a point where they could discover it. So did Peter just before the transfiguration. To the woman of Samaria, who in her openness to love's urgings had already repudiated any narrow subservience to the old order. So Jesus could reveal his function to her. The highest meets the lowest when the lowest is free from traditional bonds and open to love. The creative future descends first to that which has become chaos. Wow, isn't that interesting right now? An old order is never open to new revelation until it has accepted disorder in the name of that power which subsumes all forms of order, love. It is no longer a collective cultural effort based on past knowledge, as in the preceding symbol, but a meeting that introduces into the collective situation a totally new factor which transcends it. So it's a new quality of being is revealed, which renders the old patterns obsolete. A new quality of being is revealed, which renders the old patterns obsolete. Another thing that I found interesting about this is that the name of the Samaritan woman is Photine. Or Saint Fotini. There's a few different words, but it's just a luminous being of light is what that translates to. So it really is the light, and in this specific instance, you could even read that as Venus. And right now, Venus is what we're paying attention to. Venus is calling us to her. That is love. That is the principle of love and peace. And we have to think about what that highest order is. What is the principle of love and peace? How can you move forward in your world in this idea of the luminous being of light? Okay, a new quality of being is revealed, which renders the old patterns obsolete. It took someone from the lowest part of society for Jesus to reveal himself, who he was, because she understood. She was open to it. Old patterns are being done away with right now. What is this? The creative future descends first to that which has become chaos. An old order is never open to a new revelation until it has accepted disorder in the name of the power that which subsumes all forms of order. So let me say this. People wanting to rush back into the old way of doing things. Nope. It is being open to the chaos that is right now that is going to reorder our society in a new way of being. And it's those that are most open to it that it's going to reveal itself to first. A new quality of being is revealed, which renders old patterns obsolete. I just loved that. I loved it. And that story of the Samaritan woman, the fact that she had 5 husbands and was really deemed as the lowest part of society, is who Christ revealed himself to first, And you think about that too. Who are on the front lines right now? The essential workers. They're the ones who are having to be in that love. I mean, you have putting yourself out in harm's way every day is something that will change you. And gosh, all these people fighting for their, I want my stores open. I want to be able to shop again. Those are the people that are going to be on the front lines of this. These old ways of doing things are not going to serve us anymore. And I think that it's in this time, it's in this new moon in Taurus with Uranus leading up to the full moon in Scorpio, that it's going to be revealed to us why it's not going to work anymore. The revolution is here. It's coming, and it might look fun and it might look nice right now. We're going to open up the country again. Just watch. I can't predict what's going to happen, but I know that some upheaval that we cannot expect is coming. So it's best to decide what really matters to you right now, who really matters to you, what you really value, what is important. That's what matters. Because coming up on this new way of being, we are going to descend into chaos first. That is the principle of what's happening now. So let me stop share and look at you. If you've made it this far, congratulations. Happy new moon in Taurus. Look at where Taurus is in your chart. Let me just give myself as an example because I want to show you. I want to be able to show you. I want to empower you to be able to look at your own chart, okay? Because this is where the new seed you're planting, the new value system, right? This is me. This is my chart. Hello, Mandy Ray, Cancer rising, Pisces moon. Let me show you here. This is where Taurus is for me. You see that 11 right there? That means it's the 11th house. Every house, there's 12. There's house 1, house 2, house 3, house 4, house 5. So what you do is you go, okay, where is Taurus happening? Taurus is happening in my 11th house, or Taurus is on my 11th house. So that's where the new moon is. So for me, my new seeds, my new intentions, my new value system is all about my friend groups, my tribe, and my future. What do I value going forward when it comes to friends? Okay? And that's where I've experienced some upheaval lately. So let me give another example. Who can I look at? Let's open a chart. Let's open up this guy here. Ah, yes. Select. Oh, look. Let's look at Donald Trump. Here we go. Why not? The new moon in Taurus is happening in his 8th house. So he is having upheaval when it comes to his deepest, darkest part of his life. The 8th house rules life and death. The 8th house rules other people's money. It rules business partnerships and marriages, right? So you can look at that. Let's see what new intentions he sets for himself, okay? But yeah, you can see Taurus is on his 8th house. So this is what I'm saying. You can look at your own chart. You can easily find where Taurus is, which house it's on, and what that house means. And if you want a session with me, please, I welcome it. Why? Because I'm not playing music right now, and that's how I had made my income. I do it with astrology as well, but without music, the astrology becomes more important. So please get a session with me. In fact, I promised to run a sale through this new moon, which is at 9:25 p.m. tomorrow night. So if you book your session for any time in the future, by 9:25 p.m. tomorrow night, you get 20% off, okay? So, values, what do you value? Let's figure it out. All right, guys. I hope that this has been enlightening at all. It would do good if you read, use this time to read some stories. Read some Bible stories. Read some stories from any religion. Be thinking about your life. I mean, these are stories for a reason. Read about the Samaritan woman at the well. Read about, read about Roman mythology. Read about Norse mythology. Take in these stories. Consider them in your own life. It's really helpful. Where is Zeus in your mind? What part of you is that Zeus? What part of you is that? Okay. What part of you is Mercury? Where do you have Mercury? These are such important things to explore, because what you're really doing is exploring who you are, what you believe, how you act in the world, and what your life path is. Okay. So they're there for a reason. Someone hundreds of years ago wrote them down because they deemed it important. So maybe it would be helpful for you to read these stories. So I encourage you to explore during this time, and really, really decide what your value system is. Write these things down, journal, make lists, have new ideas, pivot. It's time to grab a surfboard, because this is not ever going to be the same, ever. All right, well, mwah. Good luck, stay well, hit me up. I may be back before the full moon, may not be, we'll see. I'll be posting on my page though. Y'all have a good one.